Well, hello, my old friend. How are you today?
Doing pretty good. How about you, brother?
Oh, no complaints. It's another day in paradise. So we
Excellent.
haven't seen you for a couple of weeks. So why don't you give us a brief update of where you are, and I'd love to dive right into that energy group that you were most recently working with.
Thank you. It seems as though since our last conversation, well, I guess it'd be a good place to start where we were just talking before the episode here. We were talking about predator and prey and our experience on the farm in the past week or so is that a couple of ducks had been eaten, preyed upon by one eagle, largest eagle I've ever seen. Maybe like 3.5 or 4 feet tall as it's standing there eating the duck. But monstrous, 10-foot wingspan. And to watch this happen a couple of days in a row at our farm was really difficult. You know, to see nature taking its course is not something that we've been experiencing on the farm in the last 5 or 6 years in our regenerative agriculture. It seems as though everything is like working to amplify another and in symbiosis. And for us as a family, it was just difficult to learn this lesson, see this challenge, and know that that it's all part of the balance. It's all part of the communication in the ecosystem that's also happening in the soil. And you started to get into some very interesting things concerning this as far as the soil goes. And maybe we could talk today a little bit about what I'm hoping to talk about today is remediation of our current reality, remediation of, the challenges, the chemical challenges that we have in our soils and our air and our water and all of these different energetic challenges that we're all dealing with in our ecosystems, but also internally, right? We've seen over the last few years that with our intention and our energy and motion, we're affecting these things on a grand scale and on a micro scale. And I know that the science in the soil always, it's sort of like foundational, right? So it sort of like shows us the way and shows us that there is balance and harmony and, symbiosis and all of this. So I was really hoping that we could talk about that, and in relation to maybe some rather toxic situations in our country and in California, for example, the oldest lake in the country, Clear Lake. We're part of a water health group, a world water health group, and Clearwater Vision is its name. And we're working to come up with ideas to remediate the toxins, the natural toxins that are present in our oldest lake. And talking to many different people, we had this idea that we could put bales of hay around the lake and use certain species of mushrooms growing in that hay to remediate some of the mercury, some of the heavy metals that are present in this lake. So, I feel like that's part of the conversation, but also many years ago, like 70s or 80s, I think it was, when AIDS was a big thing in Africa, we discovered that selenium was in high concentration in the soils of, I forget the name of the town, but it was like the town where prostitution was the largest in this one town. And therefore, AIDS should have been, much larger there than it was everywhere else. Well, come to find out, selenium in the soil there came to the body's producing glutathione in a amazing amount, so that we could, our brothers and sisters who live in Africa, they were experiencing this sort of like balance in their immune system that was keeping them healthy. And I feel like from the very little bit that we've seen working in all of this wisdom that you all share all the time in the last several years, that the ecosystem is always providing these answers, and we may not have the explanation for what's happening in front of us, but I feel like you definitely do have the answers, Leighton. And when we can bridge this communication in a clear way, I know we're getting the answers, and then we're seeing the results of those answers in the ecosystem. So my hopes is maybe we can, have a conversation about how to remediate all of these challenges by building bridges together, like we already have, and hopefully, like these things will just keep expanding. I was wondering if you might have some insight on any of that.
Oh God, yes, probably too much, but we'll start with a simple case in fact. 2 years ago, I left for the summer. My landlady wanted to have her beach house for entertaining, and her family was coming out, and she wanted it for about a month and a half. And I said, hey, I'll take a road trip. I'll go across the country. It's been, because of COVID, it's been a couple of years since I've seen a lot of my clients and family that I used to see because I traveled the country doing my work. And so I left my place, did soil workshops across the country. You were one of them, which was great and wonderful experience. And when I got back, my garden that I had planted here, I planted a local pollinator and indigenous plant garden to try to increase the predator insects and birds and et cetera, build the ecosystem. And I came back, or during the time I was gone, my landlady texted me about, hey, your garden's a little overruly. May we, cut it back? And I texted her back, oh, sure, Deb, no problem. Just weed whack it at about 6 inches. Let everything fall down so that it supports soil life. It keeps the moisture in. It'll basically fertilize it, and while you're there, it won't grow that much. And I'll deal with it when I get home. Never heard back from her. When I returned, it was bare soil, and I had this little shrub that I've been nursing for 3 years, and basically all the leaves were brown. There was no green leaves left. But when I bent the twigs, it didn't snap. So I knew that there was some life in that little shrub. So the first thing I did was go, yeah, she Roundup. I mean, it's obvious. Everything's dead. So I called my buddy Kyle in Illinois, and I said, I want you to go out to the most polluted field that has been hit with every herbicide known to man. And I want you to find me grass clumps that are still surviving somehow. And I want the root balls as well as the grass itself. He laughed and was like, I don't want to know. Like, thank you. Just ship it up. He sent me 4 boxes with the entire root ball and the grass itself intact. I got them here. I basically tied the grass up with a piece of rope. I hung it in a bottle of water or a bucket of water, and I put a concrete vibrator on the side of it and vibrated it for about 20 to 25 minutes. What that did was that removed all the soil from the root ball. So all I had was a root ball and the grass clump, which I then tossed into the compost pile. Now, the dirty water, what I did was I poured off the water. The chocolate milk is what I call it because it's just very, very dark water. It's got high turbidity. Poured that off into a bucket and just swirled the sand and clay to get all of the biology I could out of it before it was just clean sand. And then I dumped the sand. And that liquid I applied first to the bare soil through my pump truck. And then I came back 2 weeks later with a compost extract, repeated it. Then I threw down a whole bunch of new indigenous species, put some hay over the top, and kept it watered. Within weeks, it was fully grown again. So basically what I did was use the toxic soil that the microbes were living in. And they had adapted to dealing with these horrific herbicides. And that was obvious because this plant was still alive, living in a toxic environment.
Yeah.
That's a prime example of how to use nature to break down things that you don't like. I've also accomplished this with coal tar. And coal tar is basically a catch-all for hydrocarbons. And this was a car dealership that had been in business for 30 years, and all of the liquids, the oil, the gas, the cleaners, the greasers, radiator fluids, everything went down the floor drains.
Wow.
And so the site was, the car dealership knew they couldn't sell the site. They tried, but then the purchaser wanted a 21E, which is an environmental report, which they would have failed, and they knew it. So they got smart and they donated it to the city of Chattanooga. I mean, it was right on a river, a great place for a park. And so the city, not really paying attention to the fact that, hey, there could be some toxins there, willingly accepted the land and therefore all the responsibilities with it.
Yeah.
Hired a landscape architect. The landscape architect came up with these beautiful walkways and, playground areas and dog park, you name it. They had all the bells and whistles in this park. And it was all great until they started shaping the land. The dozer guy got horribly sick. I believe he died. He actually died at the end. He was found slumped over on his tractor. He'd been complaining about not being able to breathe and eyes watering for the few days prior to that.
Damn.
So they called me in and said, hey, look, we got this problem. We're under the impression that you will understand how to, neutralize these compounds. And so I said, I need soil samples because I need to identify what it is that you need to break down so I can target the right biology to do the job. Now, they wouldn't give me the soil sample. They didn't want me to know. They didn't want this public information. Even though I promised and signed an NDA that I would not disclose anything, they still refused to give me soil.
Damn.
So I actually had the guy that was going to be doing the application part of it, who he and I kind of became friends in the beginning because he was really intrigued by what I was doing. And so I got him to sneak out there after hours, dig up some soil samples and send it to me, which then I sent off to a lab to identify what it was. And this is what came back is coal tar, again, which is a catch-all. So I knew I was dealing with hydrocarbons. So I reached out to Elaine to confer with her on the correct recipe for creating what's called a Pseudomonas bacteria. Now, I'm trying to capture as many of the species as I can. I don't want just a few. I want to also grow them out in situ, so in place, we call this in vivo, not in vitro. We don't want to grow them in a lab because they're not going to work in nature, or they might for a short period of time. And I basically created an extract, sent it down to them. They applied 3 applications over the course of 6 months. And to this day, that park is amazing. So we neutralized it, and we got enough of the biology in place that it will continue to consume this until there's none left. And then it will go into a cyst form and remain there for, we don't know, hundreds of millions of years of very. So if anything ever does come back, or perhaps there's a washout, or the river, overflows, or erosion happens, and a new area is exposed, that bacteria will then begin to mine that stuff as well. So it's basically, again, using nature to do what she does. And I think that most people just don't understand that this, or don't think about this with common sense, is that this planet was a radioactive toxic waste. Nothing could live here for millions of years. And so what changed? Why did it become a Garden of Eden? Bacteria and archaea will basically break down anything and convert it. They'll what's called degrade it first, so start breaking it apart. So the individual parts are no longer as toxic or have as long of a half-life. And then once they've broken those apart, then they can begin to break them even down to smaller atoms and molecules. So yeah, there's so many ways. And to be honest with you, there's a number of projects that are either we're working on now or are coming up in the next couple of years for exactly this type of work, because finally, people are starting to realize that digging up soil, trucking it to another state, burning it, dumping it, and then hauling new material back in to fill the holes is not financially viable. There's no more free money just floating around to do this shit. And in my previous work, I ran into these environmental contractors who were always, yeah, no. Because when they realized that they weren't going to be able to make hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars doing these Superfund cleanups, because, hey, we could spend $200,000, treat the whole area, and within a few years, it will be back to its natural state. So they fought me tooth and nail. They fought all of us who proved that bioremediation is not only effective, I mean, it's really effective, but the financial savings are astronomical versus the traditional way of hauling, burning, and hauling back more soil. So you can tell me, I don't care if you got radioactive waste, I don't care if it's lead mine waste. One of my buddies, Leaf, is actually working on lead mine using fungi. We also broke atrazine. We broke 7 different horribly toxic herbicides and fungicides on another project with Ecosphere Sciences. And I can go on and on and on. You pick the poison, and I'll find you a cure.
That's really incredible. That's what we need, brother. That's exactly what we need as a species, and you know, these the celestial body that we call Mother. You know, we have this relationship where we have an opportunity to nurture and nourish, and we've really gotten away from that. And what we're learning from you, brother, is the balance is there. It's just a matter of realigning who and what we really are. And I feel like this communication that you have it's really foundational to us rebuilding everything, because if you really look deeply into what's going on here and you look across the board at illness caused by these chemicals and imbalances from those chemicals, and then you look closely at exactly what you're talking about right now, I feel like you already have the solutions. And in going back to what we were talking about originally, it's like we get these, like the IMOs or the bacteria, the hyphae, they all get this sense that they're going in the right direction, and then everything sort of like funnels that energy to propel it, you know, into that intention and into that revitalized or regenerated soil system. And when the ecosystem is reflecting back to you those simple choices that you made, and magnificent and seemingly miraculous, not seemingly, I mean, they are totally miraculous ways, because when I'm 50 years old, our farm is now like completely overtaken by those fireflies at night. And I've never seen those since I was a kid in Maine. I mean, they've been gone for decades, but because of this soil regeneration process, the whole ecosystem is responding in such a way where the neighbors can't even sleep at night because the peepers keep them up this time. I mean, like that's what's going on. So if, like, what I'm trying to say is we have all of these different imbalances going on, and you know how to locate these answers. And for example, there's a laboratory right down the street from where we live. We live in Edgecombe, Maine, but right down the street there's a lab called Bigelow Laboratories, and they're studying carbon chemicals. And we used to think there was only one forever chemical. Well, they're saying that there's over 9,000 of them, and that we don't understand them at all. They're setting up whole labs to really dive into this thing. But they need the expertise from people that have already shown that this remediation isn't only possible, but it's possible in all these different ways. It's possible in all these different levels of communication with all these different IMOs and fungus, and like even water. So, I was thinking about that on the way home today. All of these living beings on this planet, we're all sharing this water. It's it's really remarkable when you think about, how we communicate through that sharing of water. And the IMOs, they're constantly, and we're constantly in this sort of song of nature with them, in that sharing of all of the space, all of the elements. And I feel like we already have so many answers that we need as a species. And when we collectively decide that, these things of, these old world patterns are pulling us from these solutions. And when we focus on a solution as a group, or as brothers, let's say, across our country, there can be these challenges that are thrown in, from the old world consciousness, or the old ways of thinking that prevent us from getting to where we need to be as a species, and where we are, ultimately going. I feel like recognizing what's already happened, and having the presence to know that past is part of us, and the future is part of us, and all these IMOs and all the water, and knowing that we are the energy that's in motion, and we're here to plant some seeds that are true. I feel like it's all coming together through that wisdom that it took you a lifetime to earn. And when we sort of like share this, state to state, brother to brother, all over the world, things are really changing now, where before, maybe Russians wouldn't even be interested in communicating with somebody from America, simply because we are from America. But I think that on a grand scale, we're recognizing life for what it is in a new way. And I feel like the soil is teaching us that, but so is your communication about these sacred organisms. And when they're all in communion together, magical things happen, where this water that they're suspended in, like this stuff that the boys have been making so that they can take IMOs all over, the state, all over the New England, all over everywhere. They're just sending it out everywhere, and it's loaded with IMOs. We had a friend that there's people getting these amazing results all over the place. It's just like really incredible, introducing these IMOs even to aquaponic systems. Like, how does that make sense, right? But the IMOs that are in this water are cleaning these systems, like they're remediating the entire facility, and without any effort or work by the grower. And basically all it took was a level of communication that is always happening. They just had to step into it. And when we have these incredible solutions around us all the time, that you taught us how to not just grow and nurture and nourish, but also how to capture, so that we could observe. And we learned so much from you, brother, and also from all of the people that you bring together. And all of these things are pointing at something so sacred. And it's this stewardship that, like, even your dog is offering everybody that's paying attention right now. There's this level of reverence that is possible, right? This comfort that happens when we're in balance and when we're communicating in real ways. And I feel like if that's possible in those situations, then why wouldn't it be? It would entirely be possible with a situation like mercury toxicity in our oldest lake. So I'm really looking forward to any and all solutions that we can get for forever chemicals and for heavy metals and anything else you can put together for us, brother.
Oh, I'm working on those answers as we speak, and I think that the missing piece to humanity is the soil. When we were kids, I'm 61. When we were kids, you didn't watch television. You came home and you played in the swamp, or you built tree houses, or dug underground forts, and
Yeah.
You came home with black fingernails and mud smeared all over you. As a matter of fact, you actually ate mud pies sometimes too,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
the disconnect that the future or generations that came after me lost that connection to the soil. I mean, if you look at the healthiest people on the planet, they're often in environments where they can't afford pesticides of any kind or fertilizers of any kind. They're forced to use manures, whether they're human or animal or whatever, but they're putting everything back into the soil. They're not adding things to the soil other than things that are organic in nature. And so that tells you right there, very simply, that, you know, unfortunately, the nature of money caused this push toward, oh, living through chemistry and oh, better synthetic medicine through chemistry. You know, that's what's killed us, literally, is that lack of connection with healthy soil and all of these synthetic molecules and inputs, whether it's, you know, in the packaging or in food or in the water or in the air. It doesn't matter. I mean, you know what I feel really bad for is a lot of women are suffering, horribly suffering, because of hormonal disruptors and blockers. So they've been exposed to this shit that are getting on the individual sites where the hormones should go to and release into the system to help balance their emotions. The women are very emotional creatures, and when you block those things or disrupt them, then things get out of balance, like what we're talking about here. And those are the forever chemicals. Those are the preservatives. Those are the friggin', you know, makeup and hair products and underarm deodorants, and I mean, you name it. All of those things are loaded with those hormone disruptors and blockers. And you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I really am not.
Yeah.
But if you look at control and what's happening, and I'll just start with money. All right. What money has done was create the elites, has created the globalists, has created these, you know, program people to think that happiness is going to come from purchasing a new car or getting a super trophy wife, or, you know, any of these things that don't create happiness. What they create is slavery, because you're always a slave to what you own. So in taking that understanding that, okay, this is the situation, right? How do we, you can't attack it. You can't see this. You can't put your fingers on it. It's too big. It's too embedded. It's a hyper network amongst the power elite. So, all right, I can't fight them. Well, and I can't protest. Protesting does not bring around change. It doesn't. It just makes people point their finger at you and divides people even further. Action is the only way to disrupt things that you feel are inappropriate, wrong, or downright evil. So why do you think I do what I do? Why do you think I do this podcast? It's because if I disrupt, not protest, not I'm not talking about acts of terrorism here. I'm talking about living, walking the walk, talking the talk, and doing the work. And if we all do that, then soon they don't have their claws in us anymore. And the again, remember, the ants outnumber the friggin' elites. We ants outnumber those motherfuckers millions to one, if not billions to one, right? If you really look at the power structure.
Absolutely.
So how hard is that to change if all of us are doing these types of things? You know, cleaning up our neighborhoods, cleaning up our soils, you know, making farms like you did. You turned that farm around to this incredible ecosystem to the point that you got one of the apex predators, the most powerful apex predator. I've seen friggin' eagles grab deer and fly them. I mean, you talk about a magic, a dragon, a powerful creature. You have one of the most powerful creatures has come to share a message with you. Again, I don't know what that message is. That's going to be something you're going to have to figure out. But he came there for a reason, and I don't believe it's just to feed on your ducks. I think it's more that's what we're talking about today is empowering you to continue this path that you're on and plow ahead with all right, how do we start dealing with some of these compounds that are really creating a health disaster? I mean, some of the new age or old world medicine that's coming out nowadays, sound healing, the Rife machine, all the different medicinal mushrooms and how they rebuild your brain, your neurons, your gut health. I mean, literally within a generation, if we continue to do the work, we're going to begin to heal. And I mean like heal in the masses, not in just individuals. I'm talking healing communities. Is very real. It's very real. It's never been more real. And I thank COVID for that, because COVID was the thing that really sparked people to go. I mean, they were sitting home all day. They didn't know what the fuck was going on. And they began to question, all right, who am I? What am I doing? I only have this short period. I'm a slave to my job. I'm a slave to my possessions. What am I eating? What am I drinking? And that's, dude, in the last 3 years, 4 years, I've seen such an incredible turnaround of people that are really interested in and are thirsty for this knowledge. And that inspires me to keep pushing harder and harder, even though half the shit I don't even get paid to do. But if I do it and I prove it and I teach it, then guess what, man? I did something, man. I gained something that money could only dream about, which is power, which is soul, which is healing. So, you know, that's the goal here, dude. So it's just a matter of, again, identifying the poison. I have so many different delivery methods. I've been so blessed to be surrounded by these people who are experts in this little piece of the puzzle. But without them, I can't put the pieces together to paint the picture to show you guys or the audience. So, you know, all conversations like this do is inspire me to work even harder than I am on some of these really, really important home methodologies, DIYs that anybody can do if they're interested.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And to have that level of empowerment and then to just say, here you go, brother. That you're a living legend for that.
Well, I don't look at it that way. I look at it like, hey, I have a gift, and I would be a horrible person if I didn't share that gift.
And as we live that choice, brother, as we do, like each of us individually, because that's what they teach us we are, which is all horseshit, right? But as we realize that individuality is really an indivisible nature, we find this true freedom that transcends even the need for that money, you know, that made up thing that separates us from the life in the soil and separates us from the life all around us and separates us from our ability to communicate, because it teaches us to instill separation. And this, you know, this sort of like lost way, or, you know, I guess it's even been called, yeah. I heard a lot of sayings today, and none of them need to be repeated. But what I'm trying to get to is like we have this. We have these moments where we're recognizing exactly what you're talking about while we're on this bridge of communication, where we're actually recognizing that while we're communicating, we're coming up with this new inspiration in this area and in this area. And then this communication sort of broadens, and then we have this foundation that supports that level of widening consciousness or widening awareness. And to see the younger generation sort of like stepping into all of that, knowing the challenges that we're currently dealing with, and to see them have something that transcends hope even. It's just this sort of inner knowing, this, I guess you could call it spirit, but this excitement for life that's in there. You know, they're really excited about the opportunity to work with all of this and work with, you know, in stewardship of life, and sort of even transcending that sense of ownership where we realize that we can't bring anything with us, therefore we don't ever own anything. And in the process of stewarding even the relationships, they're showing us, the younger generation, my children, our children, are showing us these new possibilities in even the remediation and the communication that's happening with the ecosystem. So what you're talking about with all of this, putting all of this together, I think it's just like at this precipice of this time where we all need it in such a big way. And to hear you say that you're seeing brothers and sisters sort of really come alive in their truth and sharing that where you are, it's just really beautiful, because we are here too. And we started this conversation today with, you know, some of them are still dealing with the challenges in a way that they're still in a wobble, and they're still sort of projecting that wobble. And it's a lot easier on the energy to know that there are more of us brothers and sisters everywhere working together energetically with these very basic of intentions, but looking back to like just our grandparents and their relationship and steward of how they stewarded the soil and the plants and the seeds and all life, really, it offered them an opportunity to live to this ripe old age and like to celebrate life late into their 90s and beyond in some cases. And here today, we're dealing with these super cancers that are, you know, relatives even are dealing with multiple cancers, and all due to these levels of chemical agriculture and thinking that we can solve these problems with chemical medicines, knowing full well that we're malnourished on the most primary of levels. You know, the human plant, for example, it's remarkable how the most nourishing plant ever discovered can be taken from a species and then taken from basically the whole planet and vilified. Knowing after searching years, we all find out in our own ways that it's the solution for so many things, and it helps create this level of balance and or homeostasis, the doctors call it. And this communication throughout the body happens where everything is in symbiosis. And then we see the same situation in the soil. And now you're talking about how there are possibilities of remediation of things we don't even really understand yet, like these forever chemicals, and saying things like, sure, we just need to observe them. And that's how we get the answers. And it's like blowing my mind that it is that simple. And this communication, man, is so important, because the younger kids, you know, they're just like, they're stepping into all of this in a way where they don't have the limitation of mind that we were brought up on. And they don't have these sort of like barriers in their awareness and consciousness where they can't actually see or hear what's happening, because that you know, conditioning or teaching of separating themselves from everything, that process that we all learn, they aren't masters at it in the way that we have been manipulated to become. So it's really remarkable to see anybody step out of that whole frame of mind and paradigm of thought and into the truth and connection with the earth and with the soil and with, the whole ecosystem. And then to share that information with all of these different farms in a way that we, the different farms, can communicate it with our families, and they're energetically, it's already become this incredible transition that we've needed across this country. Maybe identified as regenerative agriculture or the stewardship of life, or soil matters, the study of soil, all of it being in this process of recognition. And I have to do it every time I talk to you guys. I gotta honor you. I've got to be here and like truly recognize what I'm part of, thanks to your stewardship of life and your stewardship of biology has offered this reflection possible, or this space where other people can be comfortable communicating and comfortable just building bridges in their truth and their experience, so that they can express in that energy in a way that helps it all come back together. And as we're like standing here at the center, experiencing the symbiosis of all life, we're still, a little in awe every single moment, because just since our last conversation a few weeks ago, so many things have happened in our ecosystem, and the transition is just like, it's happening so quickly and with all species, that this observer is having maybe this really difficult time just taking it all in, even though I'm constantly trying to feed and nurture this being with all of that observation and all of that evolution. With all that being said, the simple sort of like reunion that we're having with this intention that is supporting this energy, that is supporting this intention of healing and communion and truth and in real brotherhood, and something that the youngsters can look at and even the elders can look at and say, because they are, I should actually mention that our indigenous elders are paying attention, brother. They're watching from there. They're watching from California. They're paying attention. They're listening. They're communicating all over this country in regards to your stewardship of life, and putting that with the water tribe and putting that with everything has offered this opportunity for us to look at the world, right? Look at I guess the best way might be the world without borders, where, we sort of like lifted ourselves out of the challenges by seeing that they were all blessings and they were all sort of like lessons to get us back to this real stuff, this real communication and stewardship of life. And this remediation process it's really beautiful, brother, because I had a feeling you were going to have some solutions for us, and on a larger scale, this grand scale, on maybe like the oldest lake in the country, or helping our elders communicate, tribe to tribe, or whatever it is, because they're seeing us relate to one another in a new way, because we're seeing them relate to one another in a new way. All of these reflections are happening all at the same time in a way that I'm having trouble keeping up with the observation and the, it's just this, it's requiring this level of recognition that my consciousness is trying to catch up with. And I feel like even that may be there, even that is there in that consciousness that knows that it's all imbalanced. We just got to get out of the way and sort of like allow the truth to be the truth, and honor that and celebrate that. And this remediation is going to be a blessing, just like the rest of it. It's going to be something we can celebrate together. And like, really, I mean, how amazing is that you from California have already worked on our farm. At first, on this like electronic communication, you were able to transform an entire ecosystem in central Maine before ever even coming here. And then we get to meet, and then it just expands exponentially. And there's so much magic. There's so much like life and excitement and vitality that's happening in this, and it's happening all over. It's like everything's lighting up, and it's really truly magical. It's kind of like this background that's on the Soil Matters screen. It's like fireworks going off.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse to be alive at this point in time. There are so many awakenings happening. There's so much advances in science that just get me so excited. And yet it's probably one of the most troubled times humanity has ever seen. When you look back on history and what we understand or what we've been led to believe, was that most advanced citizens or civilizations all crashed. I mean, we have the ruins to show for it. So we know that these people were advanced and they were successfully colonizing all over the country, globe for that matter, and yet they vanished. And so you have to ask yourself, what was the cause of that? What was the reason why this advanced civilization is not existing today? And it goes back to the one problem, the nature of humanity. And that nature is control, power, and greed. And unfortunately, until we shed that, which I think you touched on in the fact that we don't need possession, we need what we need to survive or do our work, yes. But we don't need to accumulate it, because the more we accumulate, the more will get stolen from us in taxes and fees, friggin' consultants and tax advisors and all this other shit that forces us to work even harder to hold on to something that we believed would make us happy, that's really making us sad, frustrated, and angry and bitter and isolating us from each other. So if we can take one thing from the past, and that is that you're not taking anything with you. And if you get too advanced, you will end up dooming yourself. And in many ways, like, we have toxified the planet. Even in places very remote, there are now freaking microplastics and aluminum on levels that are just not calculatable. I mean, where is all of this stuff coming from, right? And so we created it. Now, do I have any worries about planet Earth? No. The only thing I worry about is humanity, because yeah, we're probably, if we continue this path without like a lot of change, I mean a lot, like the millions and millions rising up and saying enough is enough.
Yeah.
Then we are on a crash course. We are on a bullet train into the fucking train station with no hope in sight. So, again, the kids nowadays, the next generation, who, you need to give yourself and your wife a pat in the back and a big hug too, because you instilled that curiosity into them that we had when we were growing up, that wasn't beaten out of us yet. So for them to still have that curiosity and that desire to help each other, that's all that fucking matters, because they're going to spread it like we're trying to spread it. And I think, one of the most interesting things I've learned lately was from a gentleman who had went through a really, really tough time about 3 years ago. He's out here. I helped him with the soil in his backyard and his trees and his garden, his vegetable garden. And he was in a tough place at that time. And he actually ended up getting divorced, putting himself into AA, quitting drinking, just completely unplugging and going above and beyond down the spiritual path. Now, he and I, when we were working together, I would talk to him about, hey, do you use your intuition? And, how are you? Do you a religious guy, or are you into spirituality? So I kind of sparked him on to look into religion, yes, but beyond religion, into spirituality, like the indigenous people had this connection with earth, and spirit, and energy. And he did. And he recently reached out to me. We hadn't talked in, God, 2.5 years or something. And he said, hey, let's go get some coffee. And so we met at a local coffee shop, and he brought up Pauline. And he's like, how are you handling that? And personally, I don't spend a lot of time talking about her. I'm still trying to metabolize it or digest it. But he through the power, his new power of spirituality, was able to open me up like a fucking can of friggin' soda. Like he got me to bubble out and talk about it. Not like really down the rabbit hole, but at least express my present feelings or the stage of healing that I'm in. And the conversation continued on for a while, and toward the end of it, I said, bro, what is the one thing that makes you the happiest, that gives you purpose in life? And he didn't hesitate. He said, helping others and giving, helping and giving. That makes anybody, I don't care how mean, nasty, narcissistic you are, you're still going to get a bump of energy or love or beat of happiness for a second when you help somebody, whether it's your own or somebody, a stranger. So, there is the fucking key to really understanding how to achieve a higher vibration, is through sharing and giving. And so anybody can do it. And hey, look at even the movies. The bad guy at the end usually does turn around. And that's a message that they're trying to say to you, is that, yeah, you can be evil your whole damn life. And at the very end, realize the wicked ways, and then try to do the best you can to not pass that on, but to give hope to someone else, or to give encouragement or support to someone else. And it basically heals you. It's kind of like, the Bible and Jesus saying, hey, take all of your sins like a chain and throw them off the boat and let them sink to the bottom of the ocean, because I have them now for you. Again, a metaphor of understanding that it doesn't matter what you've done in your life. All that matters is that eventually you realize that there's way more to life than what you thought. And the only way to achieve that is through sharing, giving, caring, loving, these very high vibrational experiences. And so, again, kudos to you, dude. You gave those children the tools that they needed to not get sucked into the matrix and focus purely on money, but to come up with a product that, as you stated, is kind of like, how did that happen? Like, how did it clean this, or did it build the aquatic ecosystem? How did it do that? That's the fucking magic right there, dude. That's what it's all about, man. And so, again, kudos to you, brother, because they wouldn't be where they are if you hadn't have given them those tools when they were children and as they grew up. So, I appreciate you, my friend. I respect you, and I deeply love you and the wife and all of those kids for what you guys are doing. Hey, I'm not going to be here forever. I'm getting older, man. So I got to make sure there's some guys like you and your family, some warriors left to carry this on, because the battle is really in its infancy at this point. It's going to take a lot of work to turn around humanity's health and get nutrient-dense food. Food is medicine, right? Food is medicine. There were no peanut allergies. There were no friggin' asthma attacks and all this other shit when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And so there's a direct correlation to that and living life with chemistry. And here's the 50 years of friggin' proof that shows that the old ways of playing in the dirt and, you know, not being jammed into your electronics all fucking day, and connecting with earth, walking barefoot, and all of these things. That's where we need to go. And it's blatant and obvious in your face at this point in time. So again, you know, kudos to you, my friend, and your wife for all of the beautiful things that you put forward in your children to go forward and continue this really, really important work.
Thank you, brother. That's a really big deal hearing you say that today. And I think I really needed to hear it today because there have been a lot of things in life lately that are, you know, like really making me question. You know, there are in my oldest daughter's life, she's a remarkable young lady. She's 24, and she recently got married. She found an incredible husband, and she's still having those same levels of communication that are not only not supporting her growth, but even within her new family, there is a member of the family that's constantly projecting, you know, the ego energy, the paradigm that, you know, we're all taught to separate ourselves through. And it's remarkable how that one person, even with a group of even with a family of spiritually practiced, let's say, people, present people, creators, we're still all dealing with those challenges in a way where it's kind of two parts, right? We're experiencing the pain that our loved one is going through, still experiencing constantly. We're experiencing the blessing that we're learning from their inability to maintain balance, inability to communicate, but also we're experiencing as a family a new level of communication, which is an added blessing. And we're even trying to reiterate these blessings back to the family member that is maybe presenting these challenges. I think what you're saying is really remarkable because we have another situation in our community center where there is a wife that wasn't getting along with her husband, and she made some declarations to the community that she wasn't being fulfilled in lots of different ways. And, you know, we tried to communicate with her that she was pulling from or distorting her ability to maintain balance personally, but also affecting others and not having a level of awareness associated with how those seeds of creation were affecting her reality, were affecting those that are around her, were affecting her husband, were affecting her child. So all of this wasn't part of her awareness. And that's what I mean by not really seeing that sometimes in the past or in the past consciousness, we, while divided in that paradigm, we're not really present with what's actually happening. But when, you know, we're experiencing the balance and our communication like we are now, or the reflections that we see in the soil with the microorganisms. And I'll throw in another question here. Are there any IMOs that I can feed my body that are like optimal for its health? Because I don't know if you remember, but years ago we started consuming some IMOs once in a while, and we haven't in a while. But that's a question I've wanted to ask. I've wanted to ask so many questions, but that one's right at the top. Like, yeah.
All right. So before I go down that rabbit hole, have you heard of ketamine therapy?
No, I don't think so.
Ketamine is a tranquilizer. It is also become somewhat of a popular party recreational drug. You know, the raves, these not concerts, but festivals. It's very, very popular. In low doses with a therapist or a guide, It can work miracles on breaking those hormone disruptors and blockers. It doesn't do the same thing as psilocybin. Psilocybin rebuilds neural pathways, and basically the beauty of it is, like, think about this: all of your thoughts go through your life experiences and tend to, human nature, view the negative experiences as more important than the positive experiences. So what psilocybin does is bypasses those negative experiences, but allows the thought or the feeling to go through the positive parts of your life. And that's why psilocybin heals with PTSD, all kinds of past life traumas. I mean, the work, the information that's coming out of the West Coast now on how powerful mushrooms are as a healer, and ayahuasca too, is just amazing. It's just amazing what's coming out. And yes, it's choked by traditional medicine, being laughed off as woo-woo. But again, the masses are rising up and saying, we need help, and your fucking antidepressants and your anti-anxieties are only making me worse, because now I have to take more of them. I have to up the dose. I have to add another new one, and I can't afford it anymore. So the good news is that both through desperation, awakenness, and the ability to communicate on a grander level, more and more people are asking or searching for or finding these alternative treatments like ayahuasca, magic mushrooms, and what was it called? Ketamine. So out here in the West Coast, there's ketamine therapies or like little apothecaries all over the place. So I highly recommend that both that person that's creating negative energy within your oldest daughter's life, yeah, and that woman, please encourage them to go seek this out, because really it is the key to that third eye, to opening up the pineal gland so that you can realize that you're actually causing these negative things. There was a great study recently done on, it was a 10-year study on, I think it was like 500 individuals. There was of course, the control group. Mm-hmm. Then there was a group that was doing therapy. So a lot of psychotherapy through therapists, and using antidepressants and anti-anxieties. And there was another group that was just using anti-anxieties and antidepressants, but not physically meeting with individuals for therapy. And what they found out was that the control group had the least amount of depression and anxiety, versus the worst group was the ones that were doing both the antidepressants, the anti-anxieties, and the friggin' therapy. The conclusion was that the people that were doing all of this work, including taking drugs and regular meetings with their therapists, was just focusing all of their thoughts on their problems. So they were focused, they were making it worse because all they did was focus on their problems. Yeah. It was like, woe is me, woe is me. I go to the therapist, I feel better for a half an hour, then it's woe is me again. So when we focus on the negative things in our life, we can't achieve the next level in spirituality or higher vibration. So again, these things like ketamine and mushrooms and ayahuasca, they're breakers, man. They break that chain so that now you can start to heal and start to focus on, look, if I just focus on how grateful I am for this phone call or this conversation or this apple, if I just focus on being grateful for that apple, all of a sudden everything starts to heal, and the vibration, my inner vibration, begins to raise. And before I know it, I'm not an energy vampire. I'm not dragging people down. I'm fucking neutral. And then that only leads you to go, well, if this makes me happy, what would make me even happier? If that woman started volunteering or going to an elderly home and singing or creating crafts and and other positive things in these people's lives, all of a sudden she would start to rise and elevate. But again, you got to break the chain. You need something to start the process, to take that first little step forward. Because if they're stuck, if they're locked up and frozen in that point, taking that first step they're never going to do it. They're locked up, man. So you got to break that pattern, get them to take that first step, and then encourage them, support them, and continue to encourage and support them to doing other things that allow them to first be grateful, but second to be feeling that incredible joy of helping somebody else or creating a smile in somebody else's bitter, lonely life. I mean, that lights you up like a fucking Christmas tree. And I'm sure it would do the same to her, like we talked about earlier. So that's kind of the direction that I'd love you to encourage these people, these two individuals, and there may be more, to begin those journeys of healing and spiritual or higher vibration, seeking higher vibration. Now, as far as healthy things that you can consume to really build your gut biome, it's really easy, my friend. So it's called medical grade compost. It should be made on the soil. It can be made in a clean room. You can do that. You can make it. You can put it in a plastic bubble and still make it. But personally, I like to invite in nature as a whole, because one of the greatest truths is that if you are off balance and you grow your own food, if you soak the seeds under your tongue for about 5 minutes, you will genetically imprint on that food what your body needs to heal itself.
We actually have been doing that for a long time. My son, both of our sons did that like intuitively for years. And then we thought it was really cool. But then we got a series of books from you, from the Anastasia series, and they teach that in there. But just the other day, brother, we have this school that my oldest daughter is starting. The school is pretty remarkable, but the youngest child, she's a year and 2 months. It's really incredible to see a baby be brought into a greenhouse and then just handed over, some regenerative seeds to see what the baby does with them. First time she's ever held seeds, or in this life, you know what I mean? In this experience, it's the first time. Right? So what does she do with the seeds? She puts them right in her mouth. Sure. And then she gives them back to Megan from her mouth to plant. So there was this we didn't, there was no instruction. That was all just beautiful.
It's imprinted, dude. That's why children are so special, is because they haven't been fucked up yet.
Yeah.
They're intuitive. They know what to do without knowing why or the need. So no, I did spend time in earlier in my life, spending teaching kids, because again, it's just the joy and the fact that you could like pull them out of the drudgery and show them something that really like made them start to think. Like I did this science expo at my children's junior high school, where we created a hydrogen generator. And so we were generating, breaking the covalent bond of the water molecule, making oxygen and hydrogen. And so I would capture the hydrogen using dish detergent. So I'd put some dish detergent on the top of the water in the generator, and it would make bubbles. And once I could scoop the bubbles up and put them on my hand and then hit them with a lighter, and bam, it was like a fucking M80. Now, the only reason I got away with it and get arrested and thrown out of school was because I explained to him, this is not an explosion. Implosion. So I am not going to create any kind of bomb or flash or fire or anything else. It's just going to collapse in itself and go back into its original state of H2O, but it's going to be cleansed of all its toxins. It's going to be pure water. And that was just enough to get the friggin' principal to say, okay, I think you've given me enough leverage that if something happens, you won't get arrested.
That's incredible, man.
Dude, all the kids, I don't know for sure if like all of the kids asked the teachers, but there were enough kids in every one of the classes, because this was an auditorium. It was stuffed, dude. Enough of them begged their teacher to be able to write me a note of what they appreciated about me demonstrating. And that wasn't the only thing. I demonstrated a bunch of different engines, like steam engines, solar engines, the ones with the little wheels on them, inside the glass globe. I forget the name of it. Perpetual motion type thing, machines, or not quite perpetual motion. There's another term called, almost had it. It doesn't matter. It'll come to me. Basically, it's stable. There's as much energy is going in as coming out. So it's not perpetual. It's not making more.
Yeah.
It's just balanced, like a magnet motor. Although a magnet motor, you can pull more off it. But needless to say, I demonstrated these things, and the freaking letters I got back, dude, it was like, this wasn't a kid being forced to write this letter. This kid was like getting into it. Like, oh my God, I saw that. I can't wait to try to do this at home. And well, man, the potential of this for the future. And I'm like, holy shit, this is coming out of fucking kids.
Probably the first time, maybe the only time that they ever took the time to write a letter to their teacher. But,
right.
That level of communication with even our most sacred of all elements, like that seems to me like it's primary to moving forward, right? That there's so much to learn there. There's so much to learn with the communication of water and the implosion of the gases and returning back to its original.
Another great study that came out this year, man, they're coming out fast and furious at this point, was a study on the entrepreneurs that we look up to, that have made billions, millions, whatever. But whether they're good or bad in our minds or whatever, it doesn't matter. But basically took into consideration how they were educated. So the J.D. Rockefeller educational system was focused on, I believe, a Prussian approach to education, which is basically, we want workers, we don't want creative thinkers. We want to teach you how to be like in the military. Yes, sir. Ask how high you want to jump. I'll jump as high as you want, right? That kind of follow orders mentality, versus the Montessori school. So I don't know how many times as a kid, or even later when I had kids, everybody made fun of Montessori schools. But now finally it's coming out that 80% of the people that we most respect or have been the most successful as entrepreneurs at some point were either homeschooled or schooled in a Montessori methodology, not in the Rockefeller methodology. So what does that tell you? Is that, all right, we know how to, and another one that was even fucking better, showed that I think it was like 85% of kids in kindergarten, and of course the test was based on their level of maturity, would be considered geniuses at that age. And they followed these kids all the way through the Rockefeller style school. In 12th grade, they were down to about 4 or 5%, because they had ripped all of the creativity, all of the critical thinking, all of the problem solving abilities that those fucking kindergartners had. They ripped them all away over the course of those 12, 13 years of schooling.
Yeah,
so
it's almost like
schools, homeschool, that's what we need, because the public education system is no longer even close to the J.D. Rockefeller methodology. Now it's all about testing to show or learning how to take a test. Not about educating, just learning how to take a test, so that if you test 85% of your kids were A level, guess what? State gives you more money. Guess what you do with that? Oh, you hired more administrators, or you give raises to the teachers that are programming the kids and taking away all of those creative things. So, I mean, the only way to break that cycle is to just stop sending our kids to the public schools.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that we're seeing that result now in these young children who are just barely a year old. They're speaking sentences and paragraphs. They're playing multiple, instead of just learning to play a drum, they've got 6 drums and a drum set to play on, and then they can put a loop on, like the youngest girl, she'll put a loop on the keyboard, and then she'll go over and play the drum set. She'll get a little tired of that and go over and play the hand drum. And then she'll blow in the flute, and she's 14 months old, and then she'll stop and she'll just, start talking. It's really remarkable because, like you're saying there, it's almost like this thought process, these patterns of thought that we were taught. We were taught to sort of separate from who we are in those thought patterns. And we get stuck in those thought patterns, and they're not supporting us. With our family, we simplified it with seeds of creation, because we are all creators and we share the spiritual stuff. So our words, our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are all sacred seeds of creation. Our thoughts have been sort of overtaken. And if we have a creative thought process and we're sort of like staying in the inspiration, then we're going to be aligned in who we are, right? But if we're playing the program without thinking, which is, in reality, that was my past in large part, where I was just lost, and I was sort of continually trying to find myself. And I feel like this conversation that we're having about, all these different aspects of family and communication, they're lending themselves to this bigger metaphor that what you were just communicating about the water, where it can return to its natural state without all those toxic chemicals. Like, we can easily return to the critical thinking that we are teaching in our school. And we don't like to even call it a school, because all of these sort of like paradigms and feelings that we have about these words, like even Montessori school, for example, there are all of these sort of like patterns of thought that we all have associated with these things from the old world, even the tools that we use to evolve to a brighter day, let's say. We sort of, I feel like we're all coming together with new solutions. My daughter says, Dad, we really need to come up with new words to like share this stewardship of education and this learning paradigm that we're all going through together, because that's the way she looks at it. She looks at it like we're all learning, and we're all learning together. And it's remarkable that she's the educator and was at the top of her class and all that. She's going back to get her math, all kind of really cool things associated with her education and how she takes what they give her in the Rockefeller collegiate sort of like box, and she sort of like just eliminates the box, and all of her professors are pulling me aside saying, what's going on with your daughter? She's creating new ways for us to teach, and we've already offered her a position, and all these different things are happening, but she's staying true to what, why she started, which is to really help these young minds sort of like celebrate their creative truth and as we all sort of like nurture that, it's really remarkable to see somebody get excited about their creative inspiration, their creative flow, that energy, even at that young of an age, to see them like, whoa, that's a new animal. What is that thing? That goose or whatever we brought on that day. It's just really exciting to like be witness to the I am, right? Let's say it that way. As a family, we talk a lot about present and it being a gift. And if we are receiving the present as a gift and we're really here now, we have all of the past and all the future here with us. But in that sort of recognition or knowing, we transcend questions and we really live in a place of presence, which we're no longer being fed a perspective or a lens to view the world and separate everything with, and when we're fed that perspective, then we automatically have all these perceptions associated with what we were given by the Rockefeller, box that was created for all of us. So I feel like all of these things are, including the psilocybin, we've been experimenting with all kinds of, a lot of people say this can't be done, to grow mushrooms in the same bed as the rest of your nutrient dense medicines and food. But guess what? When you have a living soil system that is just thriving and the mycelium is just so thick that you can't really even get through it. I mean, you can put anything in there and it's going to say, okay, let's do this.
I'm home. Let's go.
Yeah. So we're really excited about that all happening and coming together and watching that level of communication happening with the intention and with all of this sort of new way of looking at everything, because it's all happening so fast. Everything is new. And yeah,
Hey, you know what? Here's some words of encouragement for her. So obviously, I'm a soil biologist, soil engineer. So I'm always being asked, so what's the NPK of your product? Or what's the NPK of the muncher juice? Or what's the NPK of your compost, right?
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point where, at first I got frustrated and I'd be like, the NPK is irrelevant because I'm giving you biology. The biology creates the NPK, but not in a synthetic form, in a natural form. And we only use nitrogen as a unit of measurement so that we understand that the entire periodic table is available to these plants because the nitrogen is available. The nitrogen is the most volatile. So it's the first one to gas off. So if we are providing nitrogen, then for sure we're providing everything else that plant needs, right? So came up with a term, NPK, right? Now, CNPK, carbon NPK. And the reason I use C or carbon is because carbon is now a big word. Like everybody's talking about CO2 and carbon sequestering and carbon harvesting, carbon. It's fucking the most overused word ever, right? But because people have been bombarded with the word carbon and they're starting to grasp what carbon actually means, it's an easy way to get them to start thinking a little bit outside of the NPK box and go, oh, yeah, why don't we look at carbon equally to NPK, right? Why wouldn't we? We all know it's important. We know the roots make carbon. We know carbon dioxide in the soil releases for the plant. That's all good. That's beneficial, right? So it's an easy way to start shifting the paradigm away from the focus on NPK back to starting to get their mind to expand enough that, oh, all right, so I get carbon, CNPK. I get it. All right, well, here's the next one, buddy. C, pre-NPK plus biology. Now I can communicate with them on another level because they're understanding, oh, pre-NPK. What does pre-NPK mean? Oh, before NPK was available. All right, so carbon, pre-NPK, so no synthetic fertilizers, plus biology. Wow, we don't need NPK. And all of a sudden, their focus is no longer on NPK, it's on carbon and biology.
Beautiful.
So that's a new language. That's a new way to encourage the human to think just a little bit about the connection between carbon, NPK, free NPK, and biology. And now you've opened their mind. Now it's not a hard sell. Now it's like, oh, wow, I had never really thought about that. Okay, beautiful. Focus is no longer on NPK. So how do I create fertility in my soil, Leighton? Easy. Carbon and biology. So your carbon can be manure, your carbon can be straw, hay, chips, right? And then the biology will break the carbon down and release the nitrogen for free. And you don't have to do anything. But will I get the same yield? I think there's a guy I know, Dennis Meehan. You might want to give him a call about that, because the yields he's getting out of his living soil is insane. And it doesn't matter what he plants. Whatever he plants, it does well. Yeah. Right? So again, it's building the bridges, dude. Building those bridges so that now all of a sudden this person doesn't feel all by themselves, isolated out in the middle of nowhere, focused on NPK. Now they're starting to get aware to the fact that I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to worry about my yield. All I need to worry about is my seed and my biology. And if they're okay, I'm going to be okay, because I don't even have to work as hard. Oh, and by the way, my expenses just fell off the chart because I don't have to pay for pesticide. I don't have to pay diesel to run that tractor. I don't have to pay fertilizer companies. And all of a sudden you broke that fucking bond, because, dude, I've been trying to crack the farmer for 15 years. And the hardest thing in the world to do, because they're fear living people, because they fear that if they do not bring a yield in, they're going to lose their farm. And it's true. The fucking ag industry has got them chained to the throat against the wall that if they don't have a high enough yield, they're going to lose it, because they borrowed money to buy the seed, to buy the fertilizer, to buy the diesel, so that they could work their ass off for free and pray to God that there was enough yield that at the end of the year, there would be a few bucks left for them to pay their bills.
And you would think that they would realize that the same thing is happening to their plants that's happening to them. Mm-hmm. And in symbiosis, the plants are degrading. They're producing less fruit. The fruit that they are producing is not nutrient dense. And we
animals are getting sick. They're getting sick. Everybody's getting sick. Yeah. And that's the only reason Kyle Moat came to me, was that he finally hit the wall and was like, I can't afford the nitrogen. My mom, my dad, myself, we've all had cancer. We know where the cancer came from all these fucking pesticides. Yeah. But it was still, he was living in fear. And here's another great story, dude. I got to tell you this one. You talk about restoring land, right? Yeah. 2 examples of this. Kyle did a 1 application of fish brew only, because it was too late in the season. We had to go. So we got 1 app of fish brew on. This was on corn that was going to go into beans the following year. And at the end of the season, I said, hey, we know you got high levels of biology in there. We tested the soil with Andy Marsh, so we know you have protozoa. We know you're in good place. You need to cover crop, dude, because if you leave that soil bare, it's going to degrade and you're going to lose your nutrient cycling organisms. So he agreed. And he covered crop with rye. Big mistake. Rye is just too fucking aggressive. But we did, mistakes happen. That's how we learn. We humans never learn by our successes, only our mistakes. So he planted the rye. Everything went great. Just come spring, we did a direct microscopy. Yeah, organisms were there. We're ready to go. Calls me panicked. He goes, Leighton, I'm fucked. I go, what do you mean? He goes, the rye is already growing too fast. It's gonna outcompete my soy. So I'm gonna have to do something. I go, okay, all right, that's fine. He goes, well, you told me I can't plow. I go, hey, I'd much rather you plow than I would you use a herbicide. He's like, okay. I said, all I want you to do is set your plow to 1 inch. Don't go more. The 1 inch, even if there's a low spot, That 1 inch is going to be enough to crimp over that rye plant enough. So even if it tries to come back, your soy is going to outcompete it. So he did it. He went out and tilled the field. And then he called me back and he said, Leighton, I don't understand. My soil's fucked up. I'm like, what do you mean your soil's fucked up? He goes, it's all clumped together. I go, dude, that's aggregates. You got fucking aggregation. That means you're going to have good gas exchange. That means the rain is going to penetrate and it's not going to run off. I go, that's fantastic. And he goes, yeah, but we got tons of worms. I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, Leighton, I got worms everywhere. I mean, big ones, small ones, little ones. And I go, dude, that's a good thing. And he goes, you know what's funny, Leighton? My neighbor, my older neighbor, I think he's like 80s, in mid 80s. He saw me walking around in my field, scratching my head, looking down, picking up chunks of dirt. And so he stopped his pickup and he walked out into the field and asked me what was the matter. And I said, look, my soil's all clumped together. And he goes, the guy goes, I've never seen that, because typically you dig your hands in the soil, you pick it up and it falls between your fingertips, right? Then the old man looks down and goes, holy shit, the earth is moving. And he looks a little closer. He goes, those are earthworms. and he goes, Kyle, I've lived here my whole life. I've been farming with my dad since I was a little boy. I've never seen an earthworm in this soil.
Oh, man.
Yep. And dude, the roots shoot down those friggin' wormholes.
Yes.
Way down into the soil. And then rain comes and that goes right down those tubes and follows that root and builds these microaggregates and water vapor in the soil. So when it doesn't rain for 6 weeks, his crop is going to be fine. And we proved it last year because all the other farmers' fucking soy turned gold. It didn't finish off, and his was still fucking green and growing and throwing fucking flowers.
It's amazing, man. We see the same thing, like, and it doesn't matter which side of the spectrum it's on. If we're dry for the year, it doesn't matter because those roots are so deep. They just, like you said, they follow those holes from the earthworms all the way down to the watershed. But also when, like last year, we had way too much rain, but somehow the soil system's adapted.
It drained.
It doesn't even make sense. How is it working in both directions? And the only explanation is the life. It's the only explanation.
Dude, that is power, man.
It's so incredible.
Dude, you recharge the groundwater. You not only clean the water, because there's a great experiment done in about the midway through the documentary, which I preach, called The Symphony of the Soil, where this gentleman has 4 beakers of soil. One is a pure organic, and the other is completely what we call conventional agriculture. And he pours 100 milliliters of water in the organic one. Tiny little bit of water comes out. It's crystal clear. On the conventional farming, he pours 100 mils of water, 95 mils come out, and it's cloudy and brown.
Wow.
Biology scrubs the water for the groundwater. And the groundwater feeds the river, streams, and lakes, and the aquifer even deeper. And just, dude, back in the 1850s, you could walk up to any river, stream, lake, pond, whatever, and drink that water without any fear. You can't do that anywhere. Anywhere. I don't even think in the world anymore, unless you're in Papua New Guinea or someplace that's, maybe in the Amazon that has not been, completely exposed to humanity. But that goes to show you how powerful living soil and the biology are. They naturally clean and filter and to the point where the toxins are even being broken off the fucking water molecule. So that's what you did. That's why that soil drained. That's why that soil is so productive. And that's why the soil maintained moisture even when you were in a drought, because of all of those things.
It's incredible, man. It's like it doesn't even matter what we plant in any of the beds. We do so many experiments. Like we'll do beds that are different sizes. We'll do beds that are different shapes. I mean, we've done heart-shaped beds, vortex beds. We've done high hugel mounds. We've done so many different things. And it's like with all of these curveballs, it's all we do is curveballs. It seems like none of it it all just produces way more than we ever thought possible. Like, can't really grow watermelons very well in Maine. Last year we only had 2 plants. Last year we got like, I don't know, way over 2 dozen watermelons from 2 plants, but they were just massive, beautiful,
Sweet,
incredibly healthy watermelons. And when you bite into that, it's like, I've never tasted a watermelon ever in my life. I don't, how do I even explain that to somebody? Like, I've never had a nutrient dense watermelon before.
yeah, it's the flower.
It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Those are the secondary, tertiary metabolites that are part of the biological process of the plant. I mean, the plant's there to do its job to the best of its ability. You just gave it the right environment to do it. And so, of course, it's going to express itself. It wants you to be happy. It wants you to be mouth blown away when you take a bite of it. I mean, that makes that plant's life and existence worth every bit of it, right?
Yeah.
Dude, the plants love us. The plants can tell you what color shirt you were wearing when you're standing next to them. This has been documented now. Within the last 2 years, plants have more sensories, perceptions than humans do by double. Wow. By fucking double. So those plants know more than we do. We just think we know more. And their job is, they know if you're stewarding them, you're growing them, they know that you're there to support them. They're going to want to give you everything they possibly can. That goes back to never go into your garden in a bad mood. Yes. That was something Brian and I used to preach years ago. Like, your attitude is going to affect those sentient beings. And now finally we have the proof to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are affecting them with your positive or negative energy.
Absolutely. And that's something that, a couple of years ago, the boys started taking this regenerative agriculture education out to the neighbors around Maine. And that's something that's part of what they were teaching, is that intention, that energy. It's everything, because it's imbuing the water. It's the microorganisms are thriving from that intention, from that energy, because we emanate that energy, whether we're aware of it or not. And we do it regardless of whether or not we're aware of it. So it's really remarkable to be around somebody that is aware of it and is practicing with such clear intention that they've already received the message back from all of source. Like, for example, the mother plant. When I love this analogy, because the boys, they have this very special medicine garden in the backyard at home, and they connected all of the beds. Basically, it's all one bed, which is, I've never seen a garden like that. But it's the whole backyard, the whole entire thing is hugel mounds, and basically they used everything you taught them and connected it all like into one thing. And somehow, though, I don't know if it's that the IMOs are moving from one part of the garden all the way to the other, and they're bringing with them these energies from the mother plant, where, like cannabis is always emanating that energy and inviting everyone around to come check me out. And they have these beds doing wild things. Like, just before harvest season, you'll go out there 2 weeks before they're ready to harvest, and any time between then and harvest, the soil is ringing in these terpenes, and it's so energetically loud that, like, you're just barely, walking in between the aisles, because you just want to be so gentle with the life that's out there. And it's almost like it knows all of it, like in a symbiosis, is recognizing that you're offering that level of care. And as you get deeper into the plants, they the soil is emanating. It's not just the plant, but the soil is emanating these terpenes where I'm looking around to see if the boys dumped some kind of like fuel or something in the backyard because they just started growing some really crazy skunk from California.
So Dennis, there is released a new information about 3.5 years ago. They figured out a way to study microbiology in situ, in place in soil. The biggest problem with direct microscopy is that you pull that soil out, you fucked it up, right? So the only way to really understand what's going on is to be able to view it in place using a very powerful microscope. So they developed this tool. I won't get to spend a lot of time explaining it, but bottom line was they zoomed in on mycorrhizae. And what they saw was that the outside of the mycorrhizae hyphae had an aqueous coating similar to the rhizosphere, and that biology was traveling back and forth as well as nutrients on the outside of the hyphae. Now, this is where it gets really batshit crazy. They also began to see bacteria and probably fungal spores as well that would shed their outer skin, kind of like an endophyte, which goes into the plant cell. It would go into the hyphae and then shoot along the tube of hyphae. And so it was transferring individual species both on the outside and the inside of it to different areas. Then just recently, they got another one that's fucking crazy. So they used epifluorescent, and what they could see was inside the tubes of the hyphae, they would get pockets of cytoplasm that were different colors, and the different colors represented the different chemical makeups. So they would see a NPK, for lack of better words. They'd see these clumps of nutrients that would actually like come to a point and then split apart and go down two different directions, or they would start to go down, then it would back up and then split in half and go down two different ways. The fucking things are talking to each other. They're communicating through the friggin' electrical signals in the fucking hyphae of the mycorrhizae and requesting things and transferring and trading all the time. They connected the fucking whole backyard the way nature wants to do. So yeah, that's the quick explanation for what you're seeing. Now, normally we did questions at an hour and a half. I think we only have 4. So let's just try to bust those questions out real quick and understand, Dennis, I think you need to be like almost a regular on this show. So keep that in mind, that we would appreciate more of you, not less of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right back at you guys.
So we'll go to the first question. This is more to the beginning of the show. Leighton used non-sulfur bacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria.
So that would be called purple sulfur bacteria. That's a really, really interesting bacteria. There's this thing called the Rennet-Bradsky column that basically shows aerobic to anaerobic in soil. The interesting thing about PSB is that they can live in any different troph. So they can live in a non-oxygen environment, or they can live in an oxygen environment. That's what makes those guys so powerful. Yeah, they got some superpowers, definitely, but I think the key to them, their greatest superpower, is the fact that when you put them in the right communities, they're allowed to provide their super strength or their superpower. So it's, again, in community, that's the key to this whole thing. And yes, they're very powerful bacteria, but keep them in a community and don't try to isolate them.
Yeah, the effective microorganisms in EM1 contain that lactobacillus, purple non-sulfur, and two others. And I think they've got some more that transition through that structure and can live in both.
Yep, absolutely. That's why they're effective. But imagine how much more effective they'd be if you gave the whole fucking community to them, not just those.
Biodiversity, right?
Amen. Diversity.
Okay, let's get back into the comments here. Leighton, do you have any insight on anthrophytic lake remediation ideas? Had the perfect fishing bait that would catch me buckets of the decomposting water weeds, but the lake took it at last. Also, is there an upper limit of aquatic plants in a compost pile?
So I think the best way to answer this question is through a quick story. Before the mass expansion of humanity, we had mass migrations. There was no difference between the aquatic microorganisms and the terrestrial microorganisms. They were constantly being exposed to each other through all of these migrations, whether it was fish crashing on the shore, whether it was deer crashing through rivers and lakes and streams, it didn't matter. Everything was constantly in situ, in flux. Not to mention that we know wildfires are actually providing a surface for bacteria and fungi and protozoa to fly in the wind to new areas. We also know that the sand is flying up in the upper atmosphere, loaded with all kinds of indigenous microorganisms and landing somewhere else on the continent. So that whole cycling system, it was the same thing. So terrestrial or aquatic plants, don't matter. Compost them all. You're going to get different communities, but again, that's what we were just saying. Diversity, diversity, diversity. When I first started trying to explain to Elaine, oh no, these guys will live in the soil. She was like, no, they're aquatic microorganisms. I'm like, watch. And I demonstrated to her that I could apply this fish manure on this soil and come back 2 weeks later, and guess what? They were there, and they didn't fly in on the fucking wind. There were too many of them for her to be able to use that argument that they just naturally happen. All right, and then again, it was in an environment that was pretty well controlled, so it did not get a lot of exposure to the potential of them to come in on either a person or the wind. So sorry, that was
with our indoor gardens. Our sons they basically built the exact same thing they're doing outside, inside, and they brought AMOs into the soil systems with logs that have been soaked in the lake, or a couple different bodies of water, and not just the logs, but they were getting minerals, the crystals, the stones out of the lake to some degree too. So I would agree with our personal experience. They had that inspiration, and it really has shown amazing results to have that diversity with the biology.
Thank you. That's again just demonstrates that this isn't bullshit.
Yeah.
It works. It works.
Well, and that's why, Leighton, in your horizontal bed, the top of your sand and rock layer, you're putting in the fish brew products to get that aquatic biology at the level it really needs to be before you put the next level on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Best way ever to get it going at full steam.
Yeah. Well, supply all the biology and all the different niches that you have. And, because I was talking predator prey earlier, and that's the system. That's how it comes together. So, Dennis, this one's for you, and it's not a question, it's a statement. Dennis, your family is next level in understanding of energy. Use that energy on the lake you speak of.
I will definitely do that. That's something that we focus on as a family. We've been sort of gaining a level of integrity with our energy, being surrounded by community all the time. We have, we're always dealing with people that on all different levels of life and all different sets of circumstances. So sort of like emanating this energy has been our practice for a long time. And then we've gotten a sense of integrity for being for constantly or continually choosing who we really are and I feel like applying that to the lake as a family would be really remarkable. I hadn't considered that, and I'm definitely going to bring it up to the board when I contact them again. Thank you very much.
Well, if you want to research something, the Hutchinson's effect. He's a guy from Vancouver that has done some amazing work with energy. Also, EM1 balls. I've heard of people cleaning up rivers and estuaries with enough EM1 balls. But Leighton, you were going to say something.
Yeah, Dennis, as far as, I'm here for you to support you in any way, shape, or form. So, if you get to the next level and you're really starting to isolate specific compounds, just get me a list and the levels that they're at, and we'll begin to plug away on getting you a community of microbes that will begin to degrade.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure, dude. That's what I'm here for.
The boys wanted me to say too, if you have if either of you have any quotes you might want to put on that bottle, we would really love that opportunity.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll send me the label or text me a picture of the label,
Okay.
front and back, so I can think about how best to assemble the words.
Excellent. That'll be amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, dude. My pleasure. I have so much respect for your boys. When I met them and they started telling about, oh, because of you, we threw a log in the pond. I'm like, what? I think that was all live, dude. It's somewhere on the Future Cannabis Project, and it was just like I was just enamored that like they had heard so much of the things that I had suggested, and not only heard them but implemented them, and even took it to the next level. It was amazing, dude. You talk about joy. You talk about like just energy vibrating out of one. Things like that just keep you going, man. They just keep you going, even in tough times. Whether it's personal trauma, business, money, whatever. Those are the keys to traveling through the dark side of life. Because face it, this isn't supposed to be a cakewalk. It's supposed to be full of lessons, and lessons don't come easy. And shame on us, but if we learn from our wins, if we learn from our successes, we wouldn't have to suffer as much.
Absolutely. I feel like I sort of feel like I definitely know that my wife and I raised our kids with a couple of simple basic things: golden rule, and the other one is to just try to learn from others' blessings, their fortunes, and their challenges and their major challenges as well. So if we can all sort of honor that, right? Because there's so much, right? There's so much wisdom coming from this being, this creator that I'm talking to right now, that it's just like for everyone. And if we all nurture each other in that way, life gets to become those blessings constantly. And it almost feels like it feels a little bit selfish in that we get to experience all of these blessings, all of these miracles of life, and what the regenerative process has offered our family, way beyond money, way beyond anything money could possibly offer my family. I mean, these things are so enriching to the being within this physical form that it's just a sense of, yes, I mean, we, as elders, brother, as dads, with all the bullshit going on, we really are seeing some reflections that are, like you're saying, propelling even more joy and more sort of focused intention. And when that focused intention is of our truth and transcendence of our truth and evolution, all of those old sort of like limitations they don't really exist anymore. That chemical agriculture that doesn't exist anymore, because we're all in the process of remembering and then putting that into applying that. And our brothers and sisters are noticing, like, what is that? That was the best herb I've ever smoked in my life. I'm 55 years old. So, and then, you can't get enough of it. The thing is going out and you just want more. You have more of that one, right? So no, but there's always more, right?
Yeah,
there's always more. It's just crazy good, man. So we have these totes that you can't empty. I don't know how to use that as a metaphor, but we have these things that are these medicine containers. They're totes that are full of bud. And no matter how hard I try, brother, I literally cannot empty these things. I'm sending this stuff everywhere, and I can't get to the bottom of them. But it's just like, I know it's wild. This regenerative process has given something way beyond hope, right? It's given this like truth of being in a way that we can see it in our kids.
Yeah.
And that inspiration just flows out of them. And then we receive that as like a nourishment and as elders. And then we as elders get to recognize the younger generation in a far different way than maybe our elders recognized us. So there's this massive level of transformation that's happening that I think in the stewardship of, our brotherhood and our family around the world in relation to the soil. All of this is seeming like a miracle and seeming like, but if we just like step back a little bit with our great grandparents, they really had it together. They were nurturing the soil and taking really good care of it because they knew that soil took really good care of them. And, this process of regaining our communion or connection, building bridges in all different directions for all different reasons. Even the youngest of children, the 1-year-olds are showing us all these miracles that we're making the right decisions. You see a 1-year-old take seeds from your hand at, a barely starting school. We're just opening this school. It's just so remarkable to see this gifted genius that is only a year old, and as all children are, and to have this ability to nurture that, knowing full well that this whole ecosystem is in support of that and full support of that. And even where we started our conversation today, I didn't really understand where that raptor fit in, where that eagle fit in, but I think I have a better
I knew you would. And again, like, hard lessons are well learned. The easy lessons, the easy wins, you forget about them very quickly. But to see the death of a loved one, of a loved duck who was working hard for you, keeping slugs down, laying eggs, doing its thing, to see that it was taken. And that's not the way to look at it. It was given. You gave it to this raptor. You made sure that raptor had the food necessary to do what it needs to do, which is probably breathe. And so think of it as you gave it a gift. And again, it's the hardest thing in the world to do. Like, if I ever lost one of these puppies, I'd be friggin' heartbroken, right? Yeah. So I get the loss of a duck or a chicken or any living creature, right? I'm an empath. I don't want to see anything die, but at the same time, life and death are critical for the next level, right? What dies brings life, and what life takes death. It's what's necessary. And the only reason, like, I'm so comfortable with that spend as many days behind a microscope as I have. It's a jungle out there. Everything's killing and breeding and friggin' going wild.
We need to get a good microscope very soon. It's very important to our farm and us better understanding what we're doing.
Yeah, there's a couple that are only like $350. They do great. They're durable. You can drop them. They won't break. I forget. I don't like the Omax. There's another one that I do recommend.
Swift.
Thank you. The Swift with the oscillating eyepieces. Those are really comfortable. The ones on the slides this way suck. You can't get them perfect. But with these, you can like individually, because hey, look, our eyes aren't always the same place.
Yeah. Anything
That's
to make
nice way to put it. Yeah.
Anyway, that's a full 2 hours and 1 minute. So I think we probably, out of respect, should wrap this up. And Ken, as always, thank you so much for all the work that you do behind the scenes.
Thank you.
Making this happen and getting the guests organized and on time, which is just so much appreciated. Dennis, dude, seriously, please think about, maybe every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever you're comfortable with. I think you bring a great dynamic to this
100%.
audience and again, you're pulling in a lot of different things. You're not just one thing. You're an ecosystem in your own. So, maybe one of these times we can get the boys on too to join.
I was just gonna say that is like we need to get the boys on because their experiences that they've had in the last year since they were on our channel, I think would really add to the conversation.
I think it's been 2 years.
2 years for you. I had them on conversations, or actually the Passion Within.
Really?
All the kids except for your youngest daughter and mom have avoided me so far, but I'll get them one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Nice. And Dennis, as always, deep love and respect, man.
Yeah.
I can't
Right.
thank
And the boys and mom too, especially mom, because she puts up with all you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We love you all too. We're putting something together for both of you guys. It's en route. We're actually, our youngest daughter is customizing something special for you guys, but so it's not quite finished, but she just got the parts that she needed to put it together today in the mail. So
how ironic.
They'll be in the mail shortly, and we've got all kinds of goodies to send with. So
no, I always appreciate gifts from you guys, big time. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You guys are
don't forget to text me that label so I can come up with something that's
yeah.
And with that, guys, go peace out. We're gonna end the stream and we can talk after.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.